Welcome back, scholars, to our Digital Academy. I am Professor Spark. Whether we are turning the pages of a timeless novel, our mission remains the same. Will today's sweep us into the concert hall? Let's find out together.
All right, let's jump right into this. Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are unpacking one of the absolute most celebrated intellectual works of the 20th century. We're talking about Umberto Eco's 1980 masterpiece, The Name of the Rose. Now, you might know this as a famously dense, incredibly rich novel, but what's so brilliant about it is how it disguises deep philosophy, medieval theology, and postmodern storytelling as a gripping 1327 murder mystery. It's like a giant puzzle, and today, we're going to break down exactly how Eko pulls this off and explore the really profound questions he raises about knowledge, truth, and censorship. So, here's our map to the labyrinth today. Number 1, a medieval murder mystery. 2, the labyrinth of knowledge. 3, the deadly power of laughter. 4, faith, reason, and censorship. And 5, the legacy of the rose. This journey is going to take us from a surface-level crime scene straight into a philosophical inferno.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, a medieval murder mystery.
Picture this. The year is 1327. We are at a wealthy Benedictine monastery in northern Italy, and the backdrop is highly political. The abbey is preparing for this massive theological debate between the Pope's representatives and the Franciscans about apostolic poverty. But before the conference even begins, tragedy strikes. A monk has apparently committed suicide by throwing himself from the monastery tower. Now, the abbot desperately needs this handled quietly, so he tasks 2 new arrivals to discreetly investigate. Enter our Sherlock-esque Franciscan friar, William of Baskerville, a man highly respected for his logic and scientific observation, and his young apprentice, the novice Adzo of Melk. Now, to understand how William investigates, we actually have to understand the author. Umberto Eco was a renowned semiotician. And semiotics, well, that's the study of signs and symbols and their interpretation. So for us as co-investigators in this explainer, we have to treat every single clue in this monastery as a text waiting to be decoded. To William, the murders themselves resemble a language that he just has to interpret. And decode he does, because the clues escalate fast. William immediately spots inconsistencies with the supposed suicide. Plus, there's this extreme, palpable nervousness among the monks, specifically those with really niche intellectual backgrounds, like translators of Greek philosophy and herbalists. Then more monks die, and here is where it gets incredibly weird. The corpses are found with blackened fingers and blackened tongues. So, using Aristotelian reasoning and scientific observation, William realizes this absolutely isn't a string of suicides or random accidents. He suspects poison, a very logical, very deadly pattern is at play here.
Which brings us to our second section, 2, the labyrinth of knowledge.
As William starts questioning the monks, all roads point to one place, the library. But actually, scratch that, this is definitely not your local public library. It is an enormous maze. The rooms are arranged according to geography, books are deliberately concealed, and access is strictly controlled by the librarian. The monks don't just respect this library, they're terrified of it. They actively fear entering it. It's a secretive, terrifying labyrinth designed specifically to confuse and protect. Now, what's really fascinating here is what this library actually stands for. It's the central metaphor of the entire story. It represents accumulated human knowledge, intellectual ambition, and institutional power. It is quite literally a vault of forbidden truth, guarded by strict authority. The library essentially represents civilization itself, and the fact that it's a labyrinth, that suggests that knowledge is inherently confusing. Finding truth requires patience, requires humility. As William decodes the architecture of this library, it hits him. Someone is willing to kill to protect one specific, highly guarded manuscript hidden deep within this maze. That realization launches us right into Section 3. 3, the deadly power of laughter. I want you to act as a fellow detective for a second and just consider this direct question. Why kill for a comedy? Like, why would a religious sanctuary become a slaughterhouse over a book that just makes people laugh? This is the exact moment our story shifts from a straightforward murder mystery into a massive philosophical revelation. Well, here is the hidden motive William uncovers. The victims didn't just die randomly. They were secretly reading the lost second book of Aristotle's Poetics. You see, while the first volume of Poetics survived history, this missing second volume was dedicated entirely to comedy and laughter. And the mastermind behind the murders? It's the monastery's oldest monk, Jorge of Burgos.
To prevent anyone from absorbing Aristotle's ideas, Jorge has been literally painting the pages of this specific manuscript with poison. Because the pages stick together, readers have to lick their fingers to turn them. Turns out, licking your fingers to turn a page isn't just a bad habit here, it's lethal. They unknowingly ingest the poison, resulting in those blackened fingers and tongues we saw earlier, and then they die. To really understand Jorge's fanaticism, we need to move to section 4. 4. Faith, reason, and censorship. This totally illustrates the core philosophical debate of the source material. On one side, we have Jorge of Burgos. He firmly believes laughter destroys reverence. In his mind, if people laugh at sacred authority, fear disappears. And without fear, obedience declines and heresy spreads. He views comedy as a literal threat to Christianity. But on the other side, William of Baskerville argues that laughter encourages questioning, intellectual humility, and self-awareness. For William, comedy isn't trivial at all. It's a revolutionary intellectual force that balances faith. Eko is showing us here that faith without questioning just becomes fanaticism, which is exactly what Jorge embodies. And we see another crucial clash of worldviews when the Inquisition arrives at the Abbey, led by the terrifying Bernardo Gui. The contrast is just stark. William relies on rational justice, deduction, and evidence. He is constantly revising his hypotheses. Bernardo Gui, on the other hand, relies on institutional violence, ideological certainty, and forced confession. Once Gui identifies suspects, guilt is inevitable. Evidence doesn't even matter. Gui represents the dark reality that censorship and institutional control are rarely about protecting people, they are entirely about protecting authority. This brings us to our final section, 5, the legacy of the rose. So let's follow the timeline of this complete catastrophe. At 10 p.m., William finally corners Jorge inside the secret room of the library labyrinth, but Jorge refuses to be defeated by reason. By 10:30, rather than surrender the manuscript, Jorge literally tears out and eats the poisoned pages himself. At 11 p.m., in the ensuing struggle, Jorge deliberately starts a fire, and the tragedy is absolute. By 6 a.m., this magnificent library burns completely to the ground. Thousands of irreplaceable manuscripts, centuries of accumulated knowledge, just disappear forever. William and his novice Adso barely escape with their lives. And, despite William's brilliant reason and logic, he completely fails to prevent the disaster. Eko is reminding us that intelligence does not guarantee control over history. The destruction of the library is the ultimate symbol of the fragility of human culture. Years later, an older Adso reflects on the ashes of his youth. And I want to leave you with his haunting conclusion. Certainty is impossible. Books perish, ideas survive imperfectly. Truth remains incomplete. Human beings preserve only fragments of reality. The Name of the Rose teaches us that wisdom isn't about possessing absolute, dogmatic answers like Jorge of Burgos. It's about having the courage to question, to interpret, and to search for meaning, even when we know for a fact we are only holding fragments. So as you look at the complex, often confusing world around you today, ask yourself, are you demanding absolute certainty, or are you willing to patiently decode the fragments? Keep questioning, keep exploring, and I'll see you in the next explainer.